Today we are on day 3 of our Force in Motion airplane unit. So I hope that you guys are having a blast with this. Today is a revision day, so you are going to take one of your airplanes. Maybe it's the one that did the best, or maybe it's the one that did the worst, and see if you can revise it to make it go even further than it did before. So you want to be thinking about some of the things that we've been talking about. So yesterday we talked about high and low air pressure. So if you didn't see that, or you need to have a refresher, make sure you check that out again. So today we're going to be talking about those vocabulary words that we talked about on Monday, and see how possibly some of them could go along with what you've been working on, and how they fit in with the airplanes and the designs and how far they've flown and those types of things. So remember, first we had force. So force is any push or pull. So did you see that with your airplanes flying? Any kind of push or pull? Right, you had to push the airplane away from your body so that it could fly, and that was a force that you applied to it. Then we have lift, which I'm going to set off to the side because I'm going to show you something in just a minute. Then we also had weight. Does your airplane have a weight? Yes, of course it does. Okay, even though paper is not that heavy, it still weighs something. It still has the pull of gravity on it. Now, if you were to just lay your paper down, gravity is what holds your paper down to the desk or to the floor or wherever you are. So even though paper might be light, it still has a weight. And so whenever you push it with that force and it's flying, eventually it's going to come down to the ground, because that's what happens. We have gravity and your paper weighs a certain amount. Thrust. I'm also going to set this off to the side because I'm going to show you something. Drag as well. How about friction? Do we have any friction going on? I mean, we're not rubbing our airplane against the ground, right? We want it up in the air. So is there friction? Yeah, there is friction still. Your airplane, which is one object, is rubbing against what other object? The air, right? We have to count the air. We just talked yesterday about how air has weight. Sometimes it's really heavy and sometimes it's light. So if air has weight and it's made of matter, then we have to count it, right? Okay, so there was definitely some friction going on. Plus, there's also a little bit of friction between you and the airplane, right? Like me touching this paper now, I can hold this paper in the air due to friction, right? That way my fingers stick to it and I can hold it up for you and it doesn't fall to the ground. Okay, so friction. And then we have balanced and unbalanced forces. So remember, balanced forces are equal in size but opposite in direction. So be thinking if this happened at all in your experiment where you have balanced forces. Can you think of one where they are balanced, so they're staying in place? So again, even me just holding this paper and you holding your plane, the forces are balanced, right? Because you're not going anywhere and the plane's not going anywhere until you add a force that's greater. Until I push the airplane and I have a greater force than the paper, it's just going to kind of stay still wherever it is. Okay, so that brings me to unbalanced forces. So unbalanced forces is when one force is greater than the other. So again, when your airplane is flying through the air, it's only because you have a greater force, or the wind might have a greater force if you're outside, than the airplane. Okay, and so then it can fly in whatever direction you push it in. All right, and then we have acceleration. So did acceleration happen at all? Let me refresh your memory. So acceleration means it goes faster, slower, could change directions, it could stop completely, or it could start moving from a stopping point. So did any of those things happen while you were flying your airplane? Yeah, I bet so. I bet all of them did, right? Your airplane probably got faster when you first pushed it, and then it kind of slowed down, and eventually it just stopped, right? And then it started, when you were first holding it from a stopped position, it started to move. Did any of your airplanes change direction, or did they all go in a perfectly straight line? Yeah, some of yours probably changed directions a little bit, right? Probably wobbled through the air. Well, I wonder why it did that. Going back to yesterday's lesson, maybe a little bit of air pressure pulling your airplane up and down, right? Yeah. Okay, so going back to these words that I skipped in the beginning. So we have lift, which is the upward acting force. Thrust, which is the forward acting force. And then we have drag, which is the slowing down force. So I drew a lovely picture for you guys of an airplane. So here kind of depicts what you guys have been doing and what your airplane is doing every time you push it or you throw it. So the airplane, like we talked about, even though it's made of paper, it still has weight. And so weight is just the pull of gravity on an object. And so because it has weight, we have the arrow pulling down because really the airplane wants to fall to the ground. Well, lift is what lifts the airplane up off the ground, right? So that's where that air pressure comes in. That low air pressure can help make it nice and high and light and lift up off the ground, so it's going upward. Thrust is going to push your airplane forward, so it's that forward motion. And drag is a lot like friction. It works against motion. So as your airplane is being thrust forward, the drag is trying to hold it back and slow it down. So here is your 4 words, and I'm going to put it here too in case you need to pause or screenshot. Okay. All right, so now that you're making revisions today, or maybe you already have, and maybe after this lesson you might want to go back and think about these things. So you can't really change the weight of the paper, but you can change some of the other things about it. So be thinking about how you can make that airplane just go a little bit further when you're doing your revisions, and think about some of these vocab words and how they might help you to do that. Okay, so I will jump back on tomorrow. I will see how you're doing. Make sure that you leave any comments below of any questions that you have, and I'll try and address them on the next video, okay? Or I'll type back to you. Don't forget to visit our Google Classroom. You can also leave me comments and questions there as well, and I can help you if you're having trouble with these lessons, all right? All right, well, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow.